Ah, what an enjoyable day for League. I got the counter pick in top, the lane is going swimmingly. I'm getting so fed, it's gonna be an easy carry. Life is good. Well, that is until you press tab and you see what's happening on the rest of the map. Not only that, but the chat is going bananas. Everyone just keeps typing and typing. How does everyone have so much to say? You know you're in for a terrible time in games like these. Well, unless it's your job. You gotta take the positives where you can get them. Top lane mains dread games like these, and for good reason. You were isolated from the map and you couldn't have prevented any of it even if you tried. So what do you do now? In this video, I'm gonna be teaching you these simple game plans you need to follow to give yourself the best shot at coming back in games like these to easily carry. And I know that this problem specifically feels worse as a tank player. So I'm not going to show you a single moment from me using my challenger hands on something like Camille or Jax to 1v9. Trust me, even extremely team-reliant champions like tanks can carry games like these easily. So I'll only be showing you tank clips and nothing more. You will soon see that these are simple lessons that any champion can follow. Alright, as any top player main knows, these kind of games are extremely common. You're going to get 3 or 4 teammates that aren't performing in around 20 to 30% of your games. Knowing what to do in these circumstances can increase your win rate significantly. The number one mistake so many players make in games like these is really simple. Most of you try to use your lead to bail your team out. And again, tank players are especially guilty of this. Loyal players tend to have a really bad mindset where they overthink the game. Oh, the enemy ADC has no flash and dragons coming up and they have a big shutdown, so if I sync up my roam timer with the dragon spawning, I can kill them and then we get the objective and maybe... Blah, blah, blah. Stop. None of those thoughts should ever cross your mind. Let me visualize this for you. If you have a lead, you have a lot of pressure on one lane of the map by pushing waves. And if your teammates are losing, then the other two are pressured by the enemy. Let's say that in the mid game, you start grouping more often to try to help out the rest of your team with your lead. The enemy top that's losing is just going to AFK in lane and push while you leave. So what you've done is you've lost that pressure point and conceded it to the enemy. Now you have to hope that with your numbers advantage, you can take pressure elsewhere, except that is really hard to do with a losing team. If you don't get lucky and manage it, all 3 lanes will be pressured by the enemy and the map will fall into complete chaos and you're not going to be able to come back. Please don't do that. Instead, play off the pressure you have in that one lane where you have a lot of influence. The strategy you go for will largely depend on the game and what your champion can specifically do well. For example, champions with good mobility can look to play the Singe strategy where you pressure and bait people into wasting time to try and kill you. Proper side lane play is really important for coming back in games like these, and I can't cover every single strategy in this video. So if you really want all the details for how to properly use your lead in a side lane, then you need to check out our Top Lane Essentials course over at SkillCap. There, we cover everything required for a top laner in terms of macro, so you can apply what you're about to learn even better. And that's on top of covering the laning phase extensively so you can build a lead to carry in the first place. SkillCapped is so confident in how we teach the game that we also offer a 5-division rank up guarantee while actively using our service, or you get your money back. If you genuinely want to improve and be a better player, then use the discount link below to sign up after this video. Moving on, proper side pressure is the key for coming back in games like these. That being said though, when most of your teammates are losing, the best tactic you can usually go for is crashing waves and then collapsing to rejoin your teammates somewhere in mid or in the jungle. When you're there, you can decide whether to force the play or not based on the situation that you see. Obviously, the more fed you are, the more you can get away with, and the weaker you are, the more restraint you'll have to show. The reason that we're splitting into collapsing towards mid and not using other split pushing tactics is because your weak team usually won't give you much of a choice. 2 very common goals for side laning tend to be crashing into stealing enemy jungle camps, or crashing into pressuring the enemy tower and the player defending it. Unfortunately, these strategies are usually best when you have matching pressure in multiple lanes. For example, as you crash, if your teammates are sieging elsewhere, then you can pressure a tower. The problem is that when you're behind, your teammates don't have pressure, so you'd be pushing forward solo, which makes you easy to collapse to. I'm not saying you'll never see an opportunity like this, but splitting into collapsing mid will be your default game plan when your team is losing. Okay, there is a very important distinction here. I am not helping my team because I need to save them or stop the snowballing or win condition this and no. No, no, no. I am prioritizing myself in a side lane and using my free timing windows to potentially score some kills. As you can see during the rest of this play, the top lane wave was still pushed in. That is why I am here. I may technically be helping my teammates, but that is not my main intention. I am before all else helping myself. Alright, after killing a ton of people, I base and take a look at the wave states on the rest of the map. The top lane wave was still pushed in, and so is bot lane. You do want to look for opportunities like these to hover your teammates in mid. Again, this is simply free time for me while my wave is pushed in. Sometimes you may get something out of this, and sometimes you won't. All I managed to get in this particular game was a Pantheon ult. Not the greatest thing in the world, but hey, not terrible, right? But notice that I do not let someone put pressure in a side lane. The second that a wave is coming back to my side, I am already pathing up there. You need to use your lead to make sure that one lane is always pressured by you, and you will have the potential to carry. After pushing this wave out again, I go back to my game plan of collapsing the mid. There's a couple of key details I want to talk about here. The reason this works so often in low elo is that when players get leads, they start getting cocky. Low elo players randomly look to push towers, or they end up mispositioning because they definitely don't keep track of you on the map. So because your team is losing, the enemy team is more likely going to be pushed up, so you can usually find opportunities for kills kinda easily. And 2, if you want to carry these games as a tank, you need to break a fundamental itemization rule. If you don't already know, the best advice for building when you're ahead in a game is actually to go defensive items. This is because you already deal enough damage, so you should protect your lead and be harder to shut down. On the flip side, when you're behind, you should build offensive. This seems odd at first, but the idea is simple. If you're 0-5, a Hex Drinker is not going to save you versus a Fed LeBlanc. When behind, you should build offensive items, so in the random chance that someone makes a mistake, you actually have the damage to punish and kill them. In my opinion, tanks are the only role that can break this rule in solo queue when they're ahead. Most tanks have an offensive item they can slot into their build quite easily, and because you're already ahead, you're not left wanting for defensive stats since you're a naturally beefy champion. The only tank I can think of that doesn't have a good offensive item is Ornn, but even something that gives you just a small damage boost like Abyssal Mask is more than good enough. Make sure to consult your local Ornn main though, maybe there's some secret tech out there I don't know about. The reason I'm giving you this advice is because you need to deal enough damage on your own to punish enemy mistakes. As you all know, a single offensive item is more than enough for a tank to one-shot squishy champions or duel other bruisers, giving you way more opportunities to find kills and shutdowns. And as I was playing Poppy, Sundered Sky is a really common item on her, so I already had the offensive item I needed. After pushing in top lane, I'm collapsing towards mid. Like I said, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. I get over there and try to make a play on Pantheon. It doesn't work, and now I have a choice to make. Do you remember our pressure visual from earlier, where if you help your team, you're conceding pressure elsewhere? As you can see, by coming mid, I've given Zed a chance to gain pressure in top. This is where you make a decision. You can either go back top to regain pressure there, or stay mid. In this specific game, I was absurdly strong. I'm on 3 items, and I am very over-leveled. You should only stay mid if you are 100% guaranteed to have pressure and that you know you're going to get something out of it. That's because getting the mid-tier 1 tower is more valuable than the fact that you're losing a side lane tower. But again, if I wasn't so absurdly strong right now, I would have simply gone back top lane and repeated the process of pushing and then rotating again. As the play keeps going, it's really important that you consistently reassess the situation when you're grouping. Notice that in the middle of this play, I'm looking towards top. I'm gonna be honest, I actually made a mistake here. I had assumed that Smolder would cover top lane while I was mid, but he actually TP'd over here as well. To be fair to him, that does make sense. If he went top, Zed would just kill him, so I don't really blame him for this. Alright, keep in mind that when you're grouping, you always keep asking yourself, when should my play end? When should my play end? That should just keep going through your head over and over. It is very important that you don't overstay in mid, even for something like 5 seconds. So after scouting top lane, you can see my camera come back to me. I look at my screen. Okay, Jhin ult. The wave's in a straight line, so he can easily clear it. Smolder is here, but he's super weak. The play is done. Got it. You can literally see my cursor getting ready to end the play and TP up to top. But then my challenger brain does kick in for a second. Wait a minute. Jhin ult, Blast Cone, Flash in 3 seconds, my W's up, and Yumi has speed. So I do see this random angle and I stick around to take it. But what can I say? The more you play the game, the more angles you're gonna see. Teleporting to defend that tower would have been more than fine, but I will take that kill any day of the week. And that's literally it. League has such insane anti-snowball mechanics that if you make 1 or 2 good plays, your team is back in the game almost regardless of how behind you were. At this point, I was so disgustingly fed, I couldn't throw the game even if I wanted to, and boy did I try to throw this game. That's the simple process to come back even in games where everyone on your team is trolling. You prioritize yourself, you don't play to bail people out, you keep playing on your wave timers and rotating to see what you can find. Sometimes you're not going to get anything when you rotate. That's okay. Sometimes the comeback is going to take a little longer, but you will eventually find an opportunity if you keep trying. Trust me, I have so many examples of playing a tank where my entire team is losing, but you just have to keep pushing side lanes and remember the damage item tip. If you're ahead, that damage item will help you secure kills in those key moments where you finally find an opportunity. And that's how to consistently carry even those seemingly impossible games. Stop panicking or overthinking your macro in tough games. It really is this simple. The biggest difference maker in your ability to carry these games is just how well you execute these basic game plans. You need to know how to fight well, when to stop grouping, when to go back to side, etc. Don't overthink your macro decisions. The actual truth to carrying in League is that most macro is really simple, but the execution is the hard part. You just need to practice getting better at these simple strategies that we teach you. Again, Skillcapped is the best place to learn these game plans and how to execute them properly. Use the discount link below to sign up. Anyway, see you next time.